we were talking about the flow of English language and literature, and how after Shakespeare, English literature had a slump, had a kind of degeneration, and therefore we had the Puritan movement, and we had Milton, John Milton, who was a classicist in his own right and who created the best epic in English literature. After that, we have this neoclassical period where we have Dryden, Pope, and we have satire, good irony, and drawing room poetry, as it is called. Poetry became artificial, and it adhered to rules, it adhered to classical rules all the while, but it lost the spontaneity, it lost the naturalness of Shakespearean poetry, it lost the natural feel of poetry, so to say. Why we call this a neoclassical period? Because the original classical period lies with Aristotle and the Greek wisdom. That is the original classical period, and Shakespearean period is the original romantic period. Therefore, the next romantic revival, we call it romantic revival, because the original romantic period lies with William Shakespeare. So English poetry and English literature became somewhat artificial after that, and it was only in 1751 that we had a rays of romantic revival, and it was, I think, Thomas Gray who wrote that Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, where for the first time in this period we had rays of poetry written from heart. We had rays of romantic revival. The French Revolution also had a very big role to play in the romantic revival of English literature and English society in general, because they had open borders, and French Revolution 1789 to 1799, it's called it is called the biggest revolution of human history. And we know that essay by Carlyle, where he describes how the king was disconnected from general public. Louis XIV and Marie Antoinette, and the famous anecdote goes that people went to palace and said, "We don't have bread," and the queen said, "If you don't have bread, have cakes." She did not know that those who do not have bread cannot have cake. And French Revolution and the role of Rousseau there, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, the great philosopher. Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. So he was propelling the French Revolution there, and then we had Napoleon Bonaparte in France. So England and English literature were deeply affected by the French Revolution, and senior romantic poets like William Wordsworth and Coleridge actually participated in the French Revolution. I think it is 1791 to 92. Those were the years when Wordsworth was in France. He fathered a child also there, and he was very much part of the French Revolution. When he returned, and Coleridge also, the senior romantics, they started the romantic revival period of English literature. And after Shakespeare, this happens to be the most fruitful period of English literature. That poetry of nature, poets started writing poetry regarding nature. They started writing poetry about emotions and feelings, and they started writing poetry about freedom. They started writing poetry about universal human bondage, and poetry elevated once again, because it is poets who tell us that we are human beings. Above barriers, above categories, we are basically human beings, and there is a running chord amongst all of us, the chord of humanity. There is something common amongst all of us. So poetry raises us. It raises us. It makes us see how human knowledge is unified at the end of the day. It is only for our understanding that we classify subjects. Otherwise, basically, human knowledge is unified. A flower is biology, a flower is beauty, a flower is divinity. There is everything within one object. So, these poets made us see human vision once again in totality, that human beauty, human perceptions have a universal chord. So poetry became fresh once again, and Wordsworth was a great philosopher as well as a great poet. Coleridge was a man of imagination, that Kubla Khan, the famous poem that he wrote, and together they authored critical ideas also about English literature. So we have this beautiful romantic revival period in English literature. The later romantics were Keats, Shelley, Byron. So these were the later romantics, and they took English poetry to so much robust. They made it so robust, so powerful, so gushing. Shelley is again a poet of emotions. Byron is again a poet of unfiltered emotions, and Keats, of course, I think the best of the Romantic period, and one of the finest poets of English literature. We will discuss Keats and his odes separately because they deserve a separate discussion. So this is how it happened. And literature and novel also. Mary Shelley, wife of Percy Bysshe Shelley, Frankenstein. There we have the seeds of science fiction. And we have Charles Lamb, the beautiful essay writer, essayist, who wrote all the poetic pieces. And this is how English literature flourished. This is a very unique period where we see how social trends affect literature. Social trends always affect literature. For example, we are going through this pandemic scare, this coronavirus, this lockdown. Definitely, much of literature, much of the coming literature will be shaped by our experience now. If humanity draws the correct lessons, we will have more of scientific temper, we will have more of democratic temper, we will have more of human cooperation, we will have minimalism, we will have people realizing that we should not play with nature. We will have novels and poems where the authors will tell us that this planet belongs to all species, and humans should not play with nature beyond a certain point. So this is a unique period, this is history in making, and all this wisdom, all this experience will shape the literature of future. This the period which we are talking about, romantic revival period, was shaped by several social factors, French Revolution being one of them. Now, after this, we have the English society went for industrialization. European society saw a huge wave of industrialization, and ironically, you can say, or otherwise, just as the machine enters the human sphere, we have poems of desolation, depression, frustration, loneliness. We have Matthew Arnold, Dover Beach, the beginning of the modern period. The modern period, and of course its very important culmination came in T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot in particular realized how soulless life is. Life of machines, when humans become machines, when humans lose warmth, when humans lose connection with the divine self, when humans are not spiritual, when humans are not compassionate, how life becomes so dry, sinful, so it becomes soulless. It does not deserve to be called. It does not deserve to be called human life. So from there, after when industrialization started, we have the modern period. If you look at English literature, the graph goes like this and this, like a wave. We have classical period with of course the ancients. Then we have romantic period with Shakespeare. Then we have neoclassical period again, and then we have romantic revival again. And after that we have a classicist like T.S. Eliot again. So it moves in a wave. English literature moves in waves. If we see it closely, we can see a pattern there. So this is how English language and literature developed. We will continue our discussion. Thank you so much.